I am going to share with you the 3 biggest mistakes that I have made in my Strongwoman career in hope that you'll be able to learn from them and not make the same mistakes that I did. So, mistake number 1, cheating the programme. We've all been there, we've all gone, oops, went off programme a little bit. And sometimes rolling the dice, it's okay. But when you do it incessantly and repeatedly, it is not helpful. And I have done this so many times, especially when entering like big competitions that have got weights in that seem a little out of reach, seem a little bit heavy. You feel like you need to be able to hit competition weight before you go into the competition so that you've got the reassurance in your head that you can do it. So the biggest examples for me are probably the 80 kilo log at Worlds in 2021 and the 220 kilo deadlift at Britain's Strongest Woman in 2023 and 2024. For me, I felt like I needed to hit the weight so that when I went into competition, I could be like, yep, I can do this. But what it actually meant was in training, a lot of me failing, not hitting the weight that I needed to hit, then failing weights that I should have been hitting, not actually getting a decent build in. So in my programming a lot we use RPE and I just wasn't being honest. So it'd be like RPE 8 to 9 and I'd be maxing out. That, like I said, led me to fail lifts or get 1 rep when I should be getting 3 reps, which just doesn't fill you with confidence on the day, because when you think back to your training, you're thinking about all the reps that you failed or that haven't felt good or have felt harder than they should, rather than thinking, yeah, I'm really prepared for this, I've got this, I know I can do it. Whereas actually, so that was an example of how I worked in 2023 towards Britain's Strongest Woman on the deadlift. This year I actually went in with a completely different mindset. I was like, I'm going to stick to the plan the whole way through, which is funny because I'm a coach and expect my clients to stick to the plan, but here we are. And yeah, I didn't feel the need to hit 220 all the time. I just hit really solid reps at the weights that I knew I could do and that were an accurate RPE. So then when I went into it on the day, I'd done 1 rep at 220 instead of trying to do 3 or 4. And I was like, I can do this. But equally, I feel like I could have gone in. In fact, I think the week before, I didn't feel strong enough to do 220. So instead of trying to force it, I did 200 and 210. That felt amazing, and I then knew that I would have the confidence to go in the next time and hit the weight. So don't get too hung up on competition weights and feel like you need to hit them. You are going to be much better by sticking to the program, not overreaching too soon. So that's another thing. You're just going to get really, really fatigued, overreach, and then you're just going to start to get weaker because your body's going to be like, I ain't playing ball. So stick to the plan and don't feel the need to hit competition weights every single week before a comp, because the whole point of a prep is to get you ready for it, not to be ready as soon as you start the prep, right? Mistake numero 2 is perceiving internal pressure as external pressure. And I think this is something that a lot of people can relate to, in that you think that everybody expects you to do well. There's lots of expectation on you. You should win it, especially from family and friends, and like obviously online. It's a big community where people will, sometimes they'll put you down, but other times they'll really big you up, and it'll make you feel like if you don't live up to expectations, you're failing. And this is something that I struggled with massively in my first competitive year. So in my first full year of competing in Strongman, I won the regional qualifier. I came 2nd at England's Strongest Woman, and I came 3rd at Britain's Strongest Woman. So one hell of a year, which was bloody amazing. But then I started to think that if I didn't repeat that the following year, then I would be failing, or it was that everyone expected me to do well and I couldn't handle that pressure. So I would spend so much of my training like in panic mode, and I was crying in sessions. I was probably overtraining, doing more sets than I needed to, going through events for longer than I needed to, just out of fear of not being good enough. And yeah, it really was quite detrimental, because training became something that I didn't enjoy, but just another source of stress, which it never ever should be, and especially considering it was my first year in the sport. So that's kind of taken people's, or what, that was a pressure on myself. I thought I wasn't good enough if I didn't repeat that, but actually it wasn't anyone else saying that or thinking that. And the biggest realisation and the biggest lesson from that was that I learned that no one actually gives a shit. No one cares if you win or if you lose. They're still going to think of you the same. No one remembers the winner of a competition after a week. It's done, it's over. Same thing as if you lose, come last. No one remembers that. So what's the point in getting het up about it? And one of the biggest things, I think, like a big mindset shift that I had around 2022, which is when I started believing I was actually all right, was taking, so when people say to you, oh, you're going to win that, or you're really good at that, it feels like a lot of pressure, and it makes you feel like people expect you to win. But it's all about perception and how you perceive what people are saying. So, like I said, switch that on its head, and instead of thinking people expect me to, change it to people believe that I can. And when you kind of make that really small shift in your mind, it's so freeing and so helpful, because it then goes from I have to do this thing to I can do this thing, which, I don't know, for me just fills me with much more excitement going into something, knowing that I can do something rather than doing it because it's expected of me. But again, like I say, I would say very, very rarely actually pressure from other people, and it's just yourself. So just be aware of that and be mindful of that. And just because I'm talking about these mindset struggles that I've overcome in the past, it doesn't mean that I don't get them anymore. So I'm currently in pretty much the same situation as what I've just described, but it's presenting slightly differently. So instead of it being other people's expectations, I'm very aware that it's my own expectations. And after having a really successful 2022 and 2023, I think this year I've struggled a bit with fearing that anything that doesn't match what I did the last 2 years is failing. But that's not actually true. Like, not being third at OSG and coming below that is not failing at all. But it's just an example of how the mindset struggles never stop, but I think you learn to control them and manage them and understand them more. So like, whereas in that 2017, like I explained, it was like debilitating to the point that I wasn't enjoying training anymore. It's now at a point where I can reflect and think about why I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling and rationalise it, so it doesn't become such a barrier. So now I know that I'm scared of failing, but I know that that's an internal thing, not an external thing, and I can then attack it head on and deal with it, rather than being like, why does everyone expect me to do so well? So being self-aware, I guess. Mistake number 3 is allowing a bad session to determine the rest of my day. Like, would literally ruin my day, ruin my week, make me feel crap. I would spend my time, if I missed a weight or something felt heavier than I expected, or I failed something, I would be sad, I would cry, I would throw a tantrum, and that mood would then transcend into the rest of my day. Just to put that into context, I was letting lumps of metal or bags of sand tell me how I felt for the whole of the day, and also tell me how much I'm worth. It definitely, like, if I failed something, I would feel like I was worthless, not very good, like it really plummeted my self-esteem. And I know training means a lot to us, competing means a lot to us, but we really got to stop letting these inanimate objects rule how we feel about ourselves, because it is ridiculous. And it definitely has taken me time to be able to detach from a bad session, and there's still times where I get upset if things haven't gone well or as I planned, but I won't let it ruin my whole day. I realise there's much more to life than just picking things up and putting them down. So there's 3 steps, I guess, that I have taken and that you can take to get over this and to stop letting your training sessions dictate how you feel about the rest of your day. Step 1 is to detach. You are not your bad days. Also, you are not your best days. It's really important to find a neutrality. So you need to detach your worth from your athletic performance. You are not your performance. You are whoever who also does strength sports. Like, I am Chloe, who also happens to do Strongwoman. I am not my achievements in Strongwoman. So in terms of detaching, it's important to recognise the feelings that you are experiencing, but not identify as them. So if you feel angry, if you feel disappointed, you can say, I feel angry or I feel disappointed, rather than I am angry or I am disappointed. And that kind of detaches the emotion from you and your worth and you as a person, and just it's now being expressed as something that you are experiencing rather than something that you are. It's again a really slight change in language that can make a big change in your mindset. So number one tip on that is detaching. Second thing that's really important is planning, learning. Why hasn't your day gone the way you expected it to in the gym? It's all good and well having a bad day and then be like, can't do anything. It builds a poor relationship with the implement, which is not good for long-term development as an athlete. You need to look at why things have gone wrong, learn from what's going wrong, rather than just saying I'm useless, because that's not helpful to anybody. So looking at external factors, what was the previous day like? What had you eaten? What had you eaten before you went to the gym? What was your sleep like? Had you had an argument with a friend, an argument with a partner? Were you training at a different time? Were there different people in the gym? Were you feeling anxious? Had you had a bad day at work? And then looking at specific factors relating to the lift as well. Look at your technique. Was there something that went wrong? If you're on the log, did you slightly dip forward? If it was a yoke, did you set off too soon so that you weren't balanced? If it was a stone, did you cheat the extension and go forward too soon? Like, there's so many technical things that we can look at that may have gone wrong that we just didn't think about. And if we don't take the time to reflect and learn, we're never going to improve, and we're going to keep having these bad days and keep feeling rubbish. So plan, okay? Why did this session not go the way that I wanted it to? If it was one of the external factors, let's work on that. If it was one of the more technical factors, let's work on that, and then make a plan to improve it so that you don't end up in the same situation again. And the third one is sometimes sessions are just rubbish. It is just that way, and that's ebbs and flows. It happens. So we like to use the fuck it bucket. I don't know if YouTube will like me using that language, but I was going to say fudge it bucket for the purpose of YouTube, but it just doesn't have the same effect. And this is the bucket to use when you've thought about your factors, you've detached yourself, but you still feel crap. It's one of them where you go, you know what, today just wasn't my day. I'm going to put it aside, put it in the metaphorical bucket, and I'm going to move on. Do something with the rest of your day that you are going to enjoy. If you like going out with friends, go see some friends. If you like reading, read a book. If you like cooking, cook a meal. Like, do something different that's going to distract you from what's just happened, and then move on. In the next gym session, just forget about it. It was one of those days. Fuck it, bucket. Great tool. So those are the 3 biggest mistakes that I have made. Cheating the program, perceiving external pressure as internal pressure, and letting a bad session ruin my day. Do not make the same mistakes as I did. I hope that the tips that I've given in relation to these mistakes have been helpful. Let me know in the comments if it has kind of piqued your interest, if it's changed the way you think about anything, or if you have any mistakes that you've made and any advice that you can give from what you have learnt. If you liked this video, let me know. Obviously, it's a little bit different to what I've done before. If you're not subscribed, subscribe, and I will see you at the next one.